Hello, and welcome to the Alchemists Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people, and this is another one of those weeks where I think a lot of us need a little bit of grounding.
Yeah, Mercury is like Mercurying so freaking hard in its retrograde. Like, holy moly. Like, this morning we've been on the call for like an hour and a half and just we thought we did good. And then Mercury was just like, oh, we're going to break it.
Shooting. Emphasis on the trouble. I thought, okay, Mercury's going through my third house of, my mind, calculations, thinking, driving and travel and whatever. I'm like, it's okay though, because I'll take things one step at a time. It'll be fine. Nope. Like it's more fine than it probably would have been for sure. But there are some things that I still needed to touch up, and they're becoming known, and it's going to be good in hindsight. And I think that's how a lot of us look at transits anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's like with Mercury too, it's like one thing we highlighted is like scheduling is probably going to be the issue. That's where things going to come through. And that, of course, is what's happening. So just like give yourself extra time to get places, give like double, triple check your appointments. Just that's our recommendation. The other thing that's interesting too, just to highlight is you were mentioning like plumbing and house stuff breaking, which of course mine did. Go figure, my toilet broke. But also I was like, that also means structural stuff for your body. So drink a lot of water, like pay attention to your body structural stuff.
Get your
Eat
calcium.
fiber, guys. Get your plumbing done there. Because I think that is also things that is coming up very significantly for people.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're working on multiple time zones, that's been a big wires crosser so far. Dealing with multiple time zones, which many of us do these days. So that's like a new Mercury retrograde highlight topic that I think I'll be bringing up more frequently when Mercury does Mercury's thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree. I just accidentally muted. I had myself muted and then I went to talk and it was not unmuting correctly, but that's okay. We hope you all had a wonderful new year and there's a wonderful transition time. We have a lot of really fun episode topics that are coming up in this new year that we're very excited on. If you're part of the Patreon, we just posted a poll in there for you to vote on what topics you would like to see us start with. So that is in the Patreon for you to dive into. If you want to join the Patreon, please do. The link is under, any of our link trees. It's under the episode, but we'd love for you to join the Patreon and be a part of that group. Also, that's where we're accepting a lot of episode suggestions, especially stepping into this new year. Please come in and give us what you'd like us to talk about. We would love to dive in with more of what you guys are actually asking for and interested in. It's really fun for us to get to do that. So if you were in part of the country that got completely snowed out and lost a lot of power over New Year's, yep, that's Mercury. We're just sending you love in that space.
Yeah.
Oh, and one other thing I just want to bring up, we do have one spot available still for our Ireland writing retreat that is coming up in August this year. It's not next year anymore. It's this year.
Yeah, we are in the 2023.
Yeah. We basically go across the entire country of Ireland and kind of back again, doing really cool, wonderful activities that are not necessarily like a couple of them are kind of common activities, but for the most part, a lot of our excursions and our activations and stuff are not particularly common stuff that you do when you tour Ireland, which we're really excited about because it's going to really deeply activate you in your writing journey, in your healing journey, in your spiritual journey, all of that stuff. So super exciting. All the information is under my link tree. I reopened it back up. So if you want to look under my link tree on anything or my snip feed on anything, that's what it's called. You can look at all the details there. Yeah,
absolutely. And so with a new year, we are having a full moon. It's not a new moon. It would have been really clever if I would have been able to say that, but it is a full moon. And this time it's a full moon happening in the place that the full moon actually likes to happen in. It's in Cancer, which is the moon's domicile. So we're looking at that. And this is kind of a warm and fuzzy moon that we would typically see. We've got a little bit of flavor to it this year. So we can talk about that a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Oh, and my favorite thing, just so you all know, Mars, who has been retrograde since October and kind of interrupting people's lives. Imagine Mars being the one where you're like trying to talk and they're always interrupting what you're saying. Mars in Gemini, perfect, has been in Gemini since August, retrograde since October, finally goes direct on the 12th into the 13th.
I'm
of
so happy.
January.
I cannot wait.
I know. Oh my gosh. It's been every time you talk to someone, they're going through something hard and it's like, I see where that is. Here's when it's going to end. Like,
Yep.
so things should start lightening up a little bit. This is the first of 3 stations direct that's happening in January. And to me, this is the most aggressive. Go figure, it's Mars. So
Yes.
this one should be, I'm hoping we notice it in a very positive way.
I'm really excited about it. I really think we will. It's going to be really intriguing, I think, to see how drastically and immediately we kind of all go, well,
Yeah.
like,
We're all going to realize like none of us are the same person that we were in August.
Mhm.
I
Oh, yeah.
totally feel that for myself. I am not the same person I was in August. And this, it didn't even happen in an angular position for me. If it's angular for you, if Gemini is your rising midheaven, IC, which is the opposite of the midheaven, or descendant, which is the opposite of the ascendant, then you may have noticed it more personally. Or if it is around your luminary, your sun or your moon, as it is with Emily.
I felt it very much. In case you're wondering, if you want a real world example of how Mars retrograde happened, I'm not the same person I was in August, and it did happen in my sun. And oh gosh, I went through like a really deep dark night of the soul depression time. That was unpleasant. And then I got yanked and ripped out of that the opposite way, which is good and it feels awesome. But also was like, whoa, whiplash sort of energy. So it's been very interesting, and everything from the content I'm creating to the books that I'm reading to the way I'm interacting with my kids, everything is entirely different. I mean, I'm not totally like breaking away from old content and stuff I've been creating, but the directional space is definitely changing, and fully redoing my office space. If you're watching this on YouTube, very soon you won't be able to see it this same sort of zone. It's going to look very different, and I cannot wait. It needs to happen. I know Krista's doing something very similar. So if you're feeling that urge of like moving your space around to represent who you are now, that is a generalized byproduct of when you've had a big transformation.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause you just don't want to be living in the same vibe anymore. So a lot of the time, especially if it's in your ascendant, you may notice you got a haircut and you may have gone dramatic with it or drastic with it, and maybe even like spiky with it or red, as I did at one point with a dramatic change I was going through when I got a pixie cut. This is getting redone this week and I'm so excited, but yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to be getting a bunch more tattoos. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I know what they are. I know when they're happening. I'm like, let's go. So I'm excited and ready for that. Big time.
But first, we do get to
but let's talk about the full moon.
The full moon, the relaxing-ish full moon. So this full moon is happening on January 6th, which I believe is Friday. So it'll be like the day after this releases to everyone, 2 days after it releases to patrons. And so we have a lunation, a full moon, moon full of light, which means you'll be able to see her in the sky, which is really great. In her domicile, cozy and happy and at home. Kind of like one of the things I recommend for this is a salt bath for that exfoliation thing as well. So we have this happening opposite the sun, as full moons do, but this is also right around the midpoint of Mercury retrograde. So Mercury is coming into Cazimi again with the sun, which just means exact conjunction. And so what we're seeing with this, it's also notable that Venus is like right on the descendant at this point, just because it's pretty in a chart. No other major significance that I can think of off the top of my head. So Mercury is at 17 degrees and retrograding back to meet the sun at 16 degrees, which will mark the halfway point of Mercury's retrograde. Huzzah, you've made it halfway there. Usually at this point in a retrograde, if you've been, conscious of it, you start realizing, oh, that's what the retrograde wants me to do. And then you go ahead and you start like making it a little bit more constructive or like messing things up on purpose kind of stuff. So it feels less like it's happening to you and like you're working with it. That's a possibility and one I wish for all of us. So again, moon happy, opposite Mercury. We're feeling very introspective with this one. Mercury is coming to an inferior conjunction, which just means that if you were looking straight at the sun, Mercury would be between the earth and the sun. It's on that side of the sun facing us, which is why it's retrograde. So we have this introspective, this internal dialogue. A lot of the horoscopes I wrote this week for everyone, which will be posted on Friday, are about your internal dialogue, the self-talk you have with yourself, or the way that you think about yourself and how that really informs your worldview. and how that's evolving and how it's kind of okay to choose to speak to yourself in a kinder way. So that's one major theme. We also have this subtle kind of sextile from Uranus happening. So the moon is, of course, in Cancer. Uranus is up there in Taurus, and they are within a degree or so of each other. And this gives us the opportunity to change our minds. It gives us the opportunity to make a change if we want to. It doesn't have to happen, but it's something that is available in the energy if you want to. And of course, we do also have this by whole sign, a wide square with Jupiter. And I'm just bringing that in because it is the moon. The moon moves pretty quickly. So we're probably still experiencing a little bit about that over the last day or, that time period. And so really thinking about how these things tangibly show up in your lives. Jupiter is in Aries, creating on a massive scale. So we're thinking, how do we bring this stuff that we're thinking about into manifestation? So as you're thinking about full moon manifestations and what you want to take from the concept that you dreamed up around new moon times into this creation period, think about the tangible, practical steps that will actually give you results rather than things that are intangible and don't feel real. With that, yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, like, the shedding, because it's a full moon, so we like release things a lot of times with that as well. It's a perfect time to like think back through the last year or just the last 6 months and things that you did that maybe were like oh, I can't believe I did that, or like really cringy, really embarrassing things that you maybe are even ashamed of doing, or reactions you had to things that you really wish you hadn't reacted in that way. Or even just like, man, I really, really wish I wasn't, super anxious during this time period. I'm not cringy about it. I know what it is, but it's just, I really wish I wasn't anxious during then. Those are the types of things that I really feel aligned with. Like, that's what you release during this full moon, is like, let's push those sort of things out. And so even just listing those out, burning, burying, washing away, anything like that will be really helpful.
Yeah. And actually, I have this written from a month ago. This is about nurturing your internal evolution, being at peace with where you are now, blessing who you were, and being ready to create who you're becoming. So right on point, of course. The affirmation I chose was, I'm enough for then, now, and always. Right. I thought that was cute. And some things that I was recommending, again, intentional self-nurturing, including like a spa day, sea salt water bath with candles. Again, you want that exfoliation, get rid of the old skin, let it go. A lot of exfoliation, meditation, so that you can really come to accept some of these things. It's also worth noting that at this time, not only is Mercury at a poignant moment in their phase, so is Uranus. The sun is separating just by a degree from a trine with Uranus, which means Uranus is heralding their direct. Uranus is about ready to go direct. They've been retrograde since the summer. I did have a question on TikTok earlier this week about what does it mean if planets are retrograde specifically in a birth chart, especially the transpersonal planets, the ones from Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto were mentioned. They are retrograde a lot of the time. They are in a sign because they move so slowly. So that's a generational experience within a couple of years around your birth, or months around your birth. People were experiencing the same thing. So on a personal level, it may not show up in your personality. It shows up as like a generational trait. But it also, that is part of who you are. So in a consultation, I could go into a lot more about that. But what that means right now is that Uranus, who has been retrogrades a lot, is getting ready to move forward in Taurus, not for the last time. We will have more retrogrades in Taurus since Uranus is going to be there until 2026.
Well, I'm glad it's starting to move direct as well. That's a very transformative planet. And there's a lot of really transformative energy, especially in this first half or first quarter of this year coming up, which we've obviously talked a lot about. The other thing I would recommend doing is, if not on, Friday specifically, on the 6th specifically, but sometime over this weekend, any of the inner child healing exercises we shared, or any inner child healing things you want to do, I would focus on your inner teenager though. More than anything, the person that kind of laid some of the foundation for some of the stuff that is occurring to you now, because that is what we do in our teenage years. Unfortunately, it's not super fun, but we do that. Inner teenager healing would be like, listen to the music you listen to then, or like look at pictures of yourself from then, even just like a little bit to reclaim some of those pieces. It's really an aligned time for that.
Yeah. Another thing you can do, there's that technique of reparenting yourself, where you're looking back on those things and you are reframing it from this more adult perspective and telling your younger self, like you're saying, the reality of it. and allowing your younger self to understand where you are now, what it was like actually then. So this is a great opportunity for that on a big level. There's something else I was going to say, but that one was more important. So I like that. Oh, also, so this is on the 6th. And we're looking forward to the 12th when Mars goes direct. In the middle of that, on the 8th, we do have this little, what could be a pretty crazy chaotic day where Mercury retrograde trines Uranus retrograde, the two very change loving planets. So this is about, to me, it's the idea of carrying legacies forward because Mercury is in Capricorn. If I had to choose a day where something might break or burst during the Mercury retrograde cycle, this would be the day that it would be most unexpected for something to happen. So just be aware that you might want to roll with any punches that come today. They shouldn't be hard punches. It is a trine, but it's just something to think about of like, expect the unexpected to come up this day. And on a personal level, just be thinking about like, I've been doing a lot of talking with people about like, what do you want your legacy to be? And how does that shape your goals? How does that shape your choices on a day-to-day? And so that's another nice thing to be able to think about when you're thinking about what do I do with my life? Well, what do you want to be remembered for?
Yeah. Of course, it's a day I'm traveling, so I'm really, really unthrilled for that. Thanks for it.
Well, forewarned is forearmed.
Sure it is.
That's
Absolutely.
what we all said at the most recent astrology conference I was at. And we we're like, well, at least we have that, right?
Right. I will say, what a bang of a way to end out 2022 did the world do. Like, I was just watching Under the Desk snooze content because we just kept updating more and more and more and more just in that last day, just on the 31st. Like, it's just really intense. And I really feel like that level of like how it was moving quickly and everything that was going on and all these random things that kept popping up, that's kind of what we're bringing in for this full moon too. Like it really feels like it comes in that sort of space. Obviously, I guess until the 8th, because that's still feels like that same sort of energy. So it's gonna be really intriguing. Pay attention to what's going on. Whatever is going to happen was already going to happen. So it's not like you can really be like, okay, I'm never going to let anything happen. That doesn't work. Finding Nemo doesn't work. But yeah, just to hold on to that. Like, man, that was so intense. It was so interesting to look at the energy of all the stuff that happened and just be like, wow, like it's all in alignment, but like,
wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I even made like a little story post. I'm like, I'm a really good psychic, right? Like you guys listen, I'm a good psychic. I am not Greta Thunberg taking down Andrew Tate level of prediction, level of psychic. Like no one predicted that. That is like,
no, again, on the same thread, like I'm a pretty good astrologer. And on my month ahead thing, I mentioned this being like a women's empowerment kind of moment on the 1st and around the 1st because of this Venus-Pluto conjunction. Yeah. And I said it might show up in the headlines because it's a transpersonal thing, but we would feel it more personally. It was so mundane of a thing like pizza boxes and stuff on Twitter.
Right.
But I could not have pegged that. No. That's just, I didn't see that. Saw the archetype, could feel it, added intuition to it, much like you, but that was just delightful to a neat little surprise to see how these things can show up.
Just a happy little joy.
Yeah,
little joy
it was cute in an energetic way.
Yeah, very intense. Also, this energy of, old things we're leaving behind. The fact that the old Pope, the Pope that retired.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Passed, I was like,
yeah, we had a few people from previous generations who decided 2023 was not for them.
Yeah. Which that's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, there is some cool energy there. Like, not like he's not a particularly good guy. So interesting.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch the varying reports about these people that passed away, specifically on and around New Year's Eve, and just the mixed reviews were certainly there.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Yeah, just quite a heck of a way to start out 2023 and end out 2022. And then this moon coming up is like, also, remember all that stuff you did? You're not going to do it anymore. Let's release that. Yeah. Like, you're done. Like, move on to a different space, which is really cool and empowering. That being said, with the moon, If those things sort of come up, if you have those like, oh, I can't believe this, I did that, more moments start to come up to the surface, or you have opportunities to react the same way where you notice and take stock of it and then react differently, like that's also to be expected with this energy, genuinely, of like, oh, you want to react differently? Prove it. It's sort of energy space. It's very tangible. It's really intimate for your specific life experience.
That's
Very
the Jupiter.
individualized.
Yep.
Mhm. Yeah, so
Yeah,
it'll be
it's
really
gonna
intriguing.
it's going to be a really interesting year. And this is something I wouldn't normally say, but I've already noticed people are picking up on this. If you are interested in looking at the energy for you for the year coming ahead, and you think that it might help to get some energetic insight from people who do this professionally, just know Emily and I are here for you. We both accept clients. We both have ways to interact with us and work with us in various different formats.
Yeah.
And, we can tell you so much more in person than we can on a TikTok. TikTok is great and super fun, and horoscopes are great and really helpful. But if you feel like you're in a place where all of this change, you want to be able to really surf it, then we've got your back. You can go to either of our websites and connect with us there.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note too, I will be doing more group readings, probably about one-ish a month. So if you're like, I really want guidance like this month, I don't want to wait for the 6 to 8 months that I'm booked out, then wait for those. They will pop up. Pay attention for those coming up, as well as workshops, because I do know it's a long ways kind of to wait out. But of course, I also have digital courses and stuff you can do in the meantime if you want to do that.
Yep.
But I just want to highlight that so it doesn't feel like dismaying when you look at my calendar. I would love to do a one-on-one thing with you. It's just going to be a couple months for you to wait. Or if you want to wait for the group readings, that's also solid.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I've got some slots open, I think, still left in January. And I also do this cool thing where you can actually hire me as your personal astrologer. So we meet regularly and track the way things actually show up in your life. So that's another option as well. If you want to make sure that I'm a control freak. So I'm trying to let you be a control freak too with my help. That's the idea. From my earth energy to yours.
Yeah. We are making this episode just a little bit smaller, just mostly because we have so many things going on right now in this starting of the year space, but also because it is Mercury retrograde and we're just holding that space for everyone having a lot of stuff going on. So we are going to round out here just in a couple minutes. The other thing I want to say though, we really want to support you and your journey and anything like that. If there's, podcasts you want us to be on or podcast people you want us to have on here, please let us know on the YouTube or join the Patreon there in that space. If there's questions you want us to address, feel free to reach out for those as well. And of course, our patrons, we actually actively answer those questions. So if you're in the Patreon, you get to ask a question and we will answer that question on one of the episodes. But just in general, we really love getting to connect with you all, and diving in more with you all on this show is extra special for us.
Absolutely. And again, it's just another way that we can try to make things feel more personal to you. Thinking about, what we want this podcast's legacy to be. It's not just a podcast for entertainment. This is files of information and hopefully knowledge that can help people feel more empowered. And so we are always thinking, how can we make this an even better source and collection of knowledge? So what you're looking for matters to us.
Yeah. Also, one of my favorite activities to do, and I actually shared this publicly this year, but you don't have to by any means. Since we're still in this first week of January, sit down and write out your own set of predictions for what you think is going to happen in 2023. Not manifestations, not where you're throwing energy towards it, but just be like, ooh, I think this is going to happen, or I have a feeling that this, or even tune in and being like, what are you saying is going to happen? And see how that shows up for you. At the very least, it's fun. At the most, you're going to get a lot of validation for your own intuition and abilities, and then check in on it throughout the year and be like, oh, actually, this did happen, or that did happen, or whoa, that's something that's totally going on. And I didn't even realize I had predicted it until I looked back at it, and this is how it's showing up. It's a really fun exercise, and I just highly, highly recommend it. And it can be in your own personal life too, but I recommend doing more like generalized world trends in this of, what you think that was going to happen in the world in this year. Don't be hard on yourself, because future sight is mutable. So don't stress on it. This is just a purely for fun activity that allows you to kind of touch base on where you are right now and what does happen throughout the year, so you can get some validation or get some understanding of how you witness energy trends. And it just helps you to develop even further.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. We are so thankful for all of you. Thank you for being here. Like I said, we are rounding out this episode just a smidgy early than we usually do, but we hope you got a lot of value out of it regardless. Have a wonderful full moon, first full moon of the year in its happy place.
Yeah.
Enjoy. It's also a great time to start if you want to do a consistent sort of ritual thing or your own practice on the full moon, start this full moon, start establishing it out. So that way it carries you through for the rest of the year because it's a good moon to do that. But yeah, take this energy, enjoy it, and
go make
go
some
make
magic.
some magic. Huh? Seems pretty good. Okay. It was perfect. It was great. It's
It
exactly
always
what it's
is.
supposed to be. Okay, bye.
Bye.